If you enter a conversation thinking you're right, and I enter a conversation thinking I'm right, we're not going to get anywhere. So stop arguing about who's right.
The title of the book is Difficult Conversations, not Arguments. Do you know what I mean? So it's like, an argument is just literally, this is what I think and this is what I think, and we're just going to go back and forth.
Instead of looking at blame, look at contribution. Contribution looks forward. How did we each contribute to this mistake so it doesn't happen again in future?
Focusing on blame hinders problem solving.
He said, imagine a couple discussing a wife cheating. She decided to cheat. On paper, she cheats, she's in the wrong.
Yeah.
What contributing factors led to this? Did the husband neglect the wife that then made her feel that she needed to go and cheat? Does he never listen to her? Is he never around? Was the wife feeling sad and lonely and undesirable? What were the other contributing factors? When you're approaching it like that, now it helps you to understand.
You know, who's right or who's wrong doesn't even matter.
Welcome to The Power of Pages, where we review books that ignite your mind,
elevate your life,
and drive your ambition. And this episode, we are reviewing Difficult Conversations. And I just want to start off by saying, read this book. Yeah, really. That's how I want to start off by saying,
you're Ty, I'm Mr. Fly. I'm not excited, you are. You've got the intro. I got you, don't worry.
Thank you.
That's Ty, I'm Mr. Fly. Go for it.
Yeah. Wherever you are in life, read this book. And actually, you don't have to read this book. Listen to what we have to say, because this book, for me, can help in marriages, friendships, working relationships, in any part of your life where you interact with other people. This book can help.
Ty, I don't share your energy for this book, man. I can't lie. I don't share your energy for this book. And I was interested, I always think, obviously, as I'm sure you do, what you're thinking when you're reading it. The book is a good book, and it's got some really good points in it. But it hasn't given me that vim that you got, man. I don't know why.
Let's talk about it, because you might gain something, maybe. But let's start off by saying, what is a difficult conversation?
Okay. A difficult conversation is one that you interact with another person about various topics. Like you said, it could be work life, it could be personal life, it could be relationships. So it's one where there's a disagreement of some sort. I don't know how, in the book they break it down in a few ways, but the main thing that got to me is where people kind of misconstrue or misunderstand the intention of the other person. So it's quite deep. There's a lot of different types of difficult conversations, would you say?
Yeah, lots of different types. And the way he describes it, or the authors, because there's a few authors, it can be like a grenade. You can sugarcoat it all you like. It's still a grenade. If you throw it, it's damaging. If you hold on to it, it's damaging. And the authors say it's better to have the aches of growing muscles from a workout than the sting of wounds from an unnecessary fight. So it's better to be ready and prepared than get damaged without being prepared. And I mean, it starts off by having three things that each conversation has. Each conversation has three stages. That is what happened, the feelings conversation, and the identity conversation. And I'm just going to pause there, because I'm going to let you jump in, because those three things, I was like, wow, what happened? Our feelings in that conversation and our own identity, how we feel about that conversation. And I was excited to read those parts.
Yeah, no, the beginning of the book I really liked, and I like that because I think the identity conversation is because that's the internal one, and obviously the things that go on internally is then played out, externally. So yeah, that was for me is they define it as the identity conversation is this convo we have with ourselves about what the situation means to us. We have an internal debate over whether this means we are competent, incompetent, a good person or a bad person, lovable or unlovable or something like that. So, I mean, there was an example they gave in the book about, I think that there was two people, there was a disagreement about some work. One friend asked another friend to do some work for them. And then as well as the convo or disagreement they were having, because if Tyler had asked me to do some work and I did it and he wasn't happy with it, we're both going to have the way we feel about it. So it's also going to bring up maybe your internal insecurities are going to come out. So that's also the kind of the identity conversation that you're going to have. And then if you feel as though, then it's weird because you have a conversation about an issue, but that is not actually the issue you might be debating. Again, it's what happened, the feelings, how you feel about it, and again, the internal. So it's like, they done a really good job though of, because it's very complicated.
Yes,
but they've done a really good job of simplifying it.
Yeah.
I think of simplifying the different types or how they kind of play out.
Yeah, let's talk about, you know, the other two stages, what happened and how they describe that. So the what happened part of the conversation is most difficult conversations involve disagreement about what has happened or what should happen, who said what and who did what, who's right, and who meant what and who's to blame. The feelings conversation is every difficult conversation also asks and answers questions about my feelings. Are my feelings valid? Are they appropriate? Should I acknowledge them or deny them? Should I put them on the table or leave them at the door? What do I do about the other person's feelings? What if they are angry or hurt? So within a conversation or disagreement, there's so many different factors, you know, like we said, what happened, who's right, who's wrong, or, you know, the actual situation, the feelings, what am I feeling about this? And the identity, the third thing, how is this impacting what I feel about myself? Because maybe I might be insecure about something. So the way the book breaks that down is very smart, and we're not going to be able to dive into how it does it fully, but we will give some gems. And I liked some of the statements because, you know, difficult conversations are almost never about getting the facts right. They are about conflicting perceptions, interpretations. Can't even say the word.
Interpretation of values.
And values. They are not about what a contract states, but what a contract means. And I just like, yes.
I think that's like using a contract as an example. Yeah, again, it's your interpretation. So it says that a lot of the times people think, oh, if you have the facts. So if you're trying to win a difficult conversation or trying to get the upper hand, but the facts the facts are not as relevant as you kind of think, because again, it's how you interpret it. So again, like you said about a contract, something could be written in a contract and your interpretation and mine is totally different of the exact same wording. So do you see what I mean? So that's why, again, that's the make assumptions. I think they call it like the truth assumption. You know, so the assumption is that I'm right and you're wrong. So I'm already going into the conversation with me, you're disagreeing about something. Well, I'm right, you're wrong. And so I've already started the conversation from that point. So it actually doesn't even matter what you say. It doesn't matter what you say, because and if you have the exact same assumption, truth assumption, so we're both sitting here.
We both think we're right.
We both think we're right. And so we're just kind of like,
we're not getting anywhere.
We're not getting anywhere, thank you. And then that's where you kind of hit loggerheads. And like I said, they do a really good job of kind of I'm going to jump way to the end here, but they did a good job. There was an example of a conversation, a difficult conversation, and they kind of played out a conversation, but the person in the conversation was able to speak to a coach. It was a made-up scenario. So if me and Tyler are having a difficult conversation, and I've said something, and I don't really like what you said, instead of reacting, I speak to my coach, and I'm like, oh, well, he just said that. And the coach's like, yeah, I know, but keep trying. So that was like a good way. So that's the kind of inner conversation you should hopefully be having in your head. So again, and that will kind of take you away from that truth assumption.
I think this is a nice segue onto, you know, the second chapter, because we've said, you know, if you enter a conversation thinking you're right, and I enter a conversation thinking I'm right, we're not going to get anywhere. So stop arguing about who's right. That's the title of the chapter.
And explore each other's stories.
Stories. Why do we always think the other person is the problem? And we should listen to understand. So when we listen to understand the other person's side of the story, it helps us understand their rationale. So I'll give an example from the book. Karen was submitting her paperwork late because she was overwhelmed with clients. And her boss, Trevor, told her that she needs to submit her work on time, but nothing changed. So he assumed, also the other thing it says, don't assume intentions. So he assumed her intentions were to like just annoy him or whatever he assumed. But once he understood why Karen submitted her work late, he appreciated her for her work. He understood, oh, you're submitting your work late because you're overwhelmed. Now I understand why you're submitting her late. But then he told Karen, when you submit your work late, this is the repercussions it has on me. It means that now I have to do double the amount of work, X, Y, and Z. Since they understood each other's side of the story, she didn't submit her work late. He got it on time. They had a great working relationship. And it was simply, they talk about in the book about having missing information.
Yes.
Both of them had missing information from the other person's side of point of view. Karen didn't know that when she submitted her work late, it created an additional burden. And Trevor didn't know that Karen was actually a bit overwhelmed. So she was prioritizing other work over his work. So yeah, it was great. And one of the phrases says, move from certainty, I'm right, to curiosity. Okay, maybe I'm not right. Maybe there's more to the story.
No, I think that's a good example because it's like you said, listen to understand. And again, if the title of the book is Difficult Conversations, not arguments. Do you know what I mean? So it's like an argument is just literally, this is what I think and this is what I think, and we're just going to go back and forth. But the conversation, that's the listening to understand part. So giving that clarity of, and then you get the understanding, and then you kind of take yourself out of it remotely and look and feel, okay, well, this is things from their perspective, and going a little bit into empathy as well, which I spoke about in previous reviews. But so looking at it from their point of view, how that affects them. I think there's a good thing which he spoke about quite a lot. The and stance. I'm sure you would have. So in the and stance is like basically don't choose between two stories, embrace them both. So there's no right or wrong. So in that, Karen brings her work, hands her work in late, and Trevor is overwhelmed. Oh, no, sorry, it then has a knock-on effect on Trevor. So there's no like right or wrong. It's just the and. So basically, it's applying that. There's no like, you're not intentionally handing your work in late so that because you're trying to mess me up, Karen. And Trevor's like, and Karen's like, you're not putting extra pressure on me because we're just taking each other's stories and understanding it. Yeah. So that's basically what it is. So they kind of referred to that a few times. So again, I think they spoke about as well the right or wrong. So there was an example about with the father was talking to the daughter about stop smoking, and she was, it's like, even though he's right, smoking's bad for your health, and that doesn't really make a difference to whether his daughter's going to stop smoking or not. She's mostly aware of that. So again, the facts sometimes don't even really matter. It's about having that conversation and maybe understanding, so she can understand why her dad wants her to stop smoking, and then obviously he can understand why she started smoking. Yeah. Or then you can apply that to any scenario. The main thing is just obviously talking and listening, and then again listening to understand, not just waiting to speak or trying to find loopholes in what other person's saying. It takes a lot to actually do that because we're not even speaking about emotions. Yeah. Your emotions take over, and then even like again feelings. I mean, he mentioned about like, because normally, and this was quite enlightening for me, because normally if I'm having a conversation that's difficult, I do my best to keep emotion and feelings out of it. But in the book, they obviously say that you should actually mark your feelings or explain your feelings. What did you think about that? I thought that was good because
it helps make it human, I think, when you bring your emotions into it and your feelings into it. And also, from a conversation point of view, you can't argue or you can't disagree with the other person's feelings. So if I say to you, I feel let down by X, Y, and Z, I'm not saying you let me down, because if I say you let me down, now you're attacked. Yeah. No, I didn't let you down. Yeah. But if I say, well, I feel let down, what can you respond to that? It was like, wow, actually, no, definitely. You can't. So I liked the feelings, using the feelings to highlight your perspective or your point of view, because it's true. Yeah. Yeah. And it also informs the other person. Yeah. They might not be aware of it. Yeah. That's the thing. Again, with the assumptions, you could just assume that you assume that you're the only one, because I think it says here your assumptions or your conclusions they always reflect self-interest. So in certain situations, you assume or you conclude that I'm the only one that's been hurt by this. Yeah. Or I'm the only one who's been affected by this, or whatever the situation may be. But when the other person kind of lets you in, and they tell you how it made them feel, or the impact it had on them, you actually now take that, and that's new information that you can have, and that might change your opinion or change your stance. Yeah. Or at least if it doesn't do that, it might just give you a better, wider understanding. Yeah.
So
that leads on nicely to the chapter 3. Don't assume they meant it. Yeah, we're keeping it nice and
chronological.
Don't assume they meant it.
Yeah.
So there was a nice story here about a boyfriend and girlfriend, and they both have their own stories. But the girlfriend eats an extra scoop of ice cream at a party, and the boyfriend says, "Why don't you lay off the ice cream at the party?" Now the girlfriend assumes that he was trying to embarrass her, like in front of everyone, and the boyfriend says, "Oh, I was only trying to help with your diet," and then he assumes that she was starting a fight on purpose. So they both got their own assumptions about the other one. But when we dive deep into it and look at their feelings, the boyfriend was only trying to help, in his eyes, only trying to help her with her goals of losing weight and trying to be supportive. And the girlfriend was only trying to suggest to him that her feelings, like, I feel, because she obviously felt her identity, she felt insecure about all of that. She felt attacked when he said that.
She thought he was intentionally trying to embarrass her or draw her out in front of everybody.
But when we look at it, they're both of their actual intentions. They're both not trying to attack each other. She's expressing her emotions and he's trying to help her. And the book breaks it down nicely. Later on, they have like a conversation. One was the conversation of how it went, and another one was a conversation of how it could have went if they both expressed their emotions and approached the conversation with a learning, with curiosity, rather than what was the other one? Rather than certainty.
Yeah, certainty.
So basically, don't assume what the other person.
It's because with the assumptions, we always our assumptions are often wrong. So again, and I think we assume intentions based on the impact on us. So, and I think that actually works reverse, because like if it also works in reverse. So if in that situation the impact was that they both felt disrespected and hurt and whatever feelings they had, so they assumed that the other person, that was their initial intention. So what I mean, so it's like because you have a negative feeling at the end of what's happened, you think that was the intention where it actually wasn't. So that's why you shouldn't really make an assumption. And then I think it's like you need to give, but that's where it all comes down to the communication, you know. And again, that conversation, and it's not always going to be like. I do think though the boyfriend's timing in that there's a different. He could have done that in a different way. I know they did it for the example, it might not even be a real scenario, but you know, upon reflection, he might reflect and think, okay, maybe I could have just whispered that in her ear or had like a private conversation about it instead of, but you know, that wouldn't have given us the example. But again, we just kind of assume the worst. Especially when you're kind of, again, hurt, emotional, upset or embarrassed or insecure, you know, all of these things, you're carrying all these things on your back, and then someone that's close to you that you care about says something, you kind of think, oh my gosh, they've done this intentionally. Their actual motivation behind what they did was because they wanted to hurt me and they wanted to draw me out or whatever it might be. So that's again why it's not, you should avoid those situations. Avoid assuming, again, you know, gonna go back to it again, listen to understand and question. I think, again, about the curiosity, it's all about questioning. And I think the better the level of your questioning, the better answers you'll get and the better understanding then you also get as well.
And when it comes on to listening, they talk about try to listen past the accusation for the feelings within the accusation. So acknowledge the feeling first. So someone might say, like I said, you let me down. That's what they're saying. If you can control your emotions, say you said that to me, Tyler, you let me down, and I'm like, oh, actually, what he's actually saying is that he feels let down. So I'm switching what you've said so that I don't feel attacked. And then I paraphrase it back to you. Okay, so what you're saying is you feel let down because, you know, I didn't message you this morning or whatever.
But I think, but that's where, like, because I think this book is, you need, if one person's read the book and the other person hasn't, if one, not even read the book necessarily, but if one person's aware of how to have a constructive conversation, whether it's a difficult, in this sense, a difficult conversation, and the other person isn't, you're gonna find it quite hard. Because in that exact situation now, if I said to you, you let me down, then you say, all right, I understand you feel let down. I could be like, no, I don't feel let down, you let me down. So then we're still, because it's like, if I don't necessarily understand what you're trying to do or how you're trying to express my feelings, or someone could very easily be like, no, you're trying to talk around the fact that you actually did let me down. Do you see what I mean? And then it's like, you kind of get stuck on that point.
But the book talks about patience.
Yeah, but that's, okay, yeah, go on.
Because you counteracted it straight away, yeah? Like, no, actually, I don't feel let down.
Yeah.
So then that's where it talks about approaching it with curiosity and trying to stay calm.
Yeah.
So, all right, Chris, what about the situation? How did I let you down?
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
Then you go into the situation. Okay, so because I did X, Y, and Z, that's what meant I let you down. So then we continue having a conversation about it. Like, so then we eventually get, hopefully in theory, you're now getting to a point where you're calmer. Then we can say, okay, well, sorry, my understanding was that you was gonna do this first, based on whatever. Do you get what I mean?
Yeah.
So, yes, it's much easier, I think, if both people understand the concept of the difficult conversations. But I still think it's achievable if one person does, because as long as they're able to control their emotions, continuously approach with curiosity and keep asking questions to get to the real.
I think the patience is key.
Yeah.
So like you said, I think the patience is key, because it may not even go the second. You know, you might have to be very, very patient. Depending, again, it's also, again, we go into these sort of conversations with previous experience or experiences that kind of either trigger us or you know, bring out some sort of emotion that we may not be aware of. And sometimes as well, it might not even be about that thing that's happened. It might be about the other 10 things that have happened, and this is just the straw that broke the camel's back or something like that. So, but yeah, I think in that situation, patience definitely is the key. So yeah, good point.
The next chapter talks about abandoning blame.
Yeah.
What I love about this book is it gets you to reflect on yourself and how you can approach difficult conversations. And we'll probably touch on it a bit, but you know, looking at your own identity, what things am I insecure about that if someone said that to me, I might feel attacked, and then I might attack back. So when you're aware of your own identity and you're aware of the things that impact you, you can then control your emotions based on that. But yeah, it talks about abandoning blame. And the key thing that I loved about this chapter was it's blame looks backwards.
Yeah.
And it says, instead of looking at blame, look at contribution. Contribution looks forward. How did we each contribute to this mistake so it doesn't happen again in future? Now, one person, I mean, it says don't try and look at percentages really, but one person could have contributed 90% and the other person could have contributed 10%, but there was still a level of contribution from each party in that situation. Yeah, and an example he gives, actually, let's give an example quickly, was a boss had the wrong pitch deck for his presentation. His PA put the wrong pitch deck because the assistant, packed the wrong one. And he could have initially blamed her and said, you packed the wrong one, blah, 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 blah. But instead of blaming, he could have focused on his contribution. Well, actually, normally in those situations, he double checks the pitch deck before he goes on. So if he had double checked, then he could have said to the PA. He would have seen at the time at the right time. And prior to that, he was, he's normally moody or something with the PA, and the PA doesn't like to bother him when he's moody. So if he was less moody, she could have approached him and said, oh, do you know what? Like, I'm packing your pitch deck. Is this the right one? She didn't get the chance to double check because he's always snappy. Yeah. So if he wasn't, that's his contribution to the situation. Yes, the PA packed the wrong pitch deck. She made the vital mistake, but there are all these other contributing factors that could have solved the issue. Yeah, no, I think this was a good chapter for me, and I think it's a wider thing, because in our society, you know, whether it's sport or politics or anything really, blame is like people are just looking to assign blame, like, well, it's not I did my job, or you know, everyone's trying to, like,
if you look, like I said, politically, or you look at sports, maybe an easier way is a sports team and a football team and they're not doing well, who's to blame? All right, it's the manager, or it's this player, or it's whatever. It's very easy to just assign blame on that individual, and then it's kind of like, it kind of gives everyone else a free pass, or it gives the whole system a free pass. But the problem is that maybe you haven't actually solved the problem. And I think in the book they say, focusing on blame hinders problem solving.
Yeah.
So in that same scenario that they gave, because he could have just assigned blame, you packed the wrong pitch deck, don't do that again.
Yeah.
Like, and then nothing really changes. She's just under a bit more pressure, and he's even being snappy in that moment.
Yeah.
Whereas if it's like, okay, what happened today? How comes you gave, again, with no sort of, just trying to learn, like, what happened? You know, normally you don't do this. How comes you packed the wrong pitch deck? Because the interview was quite embarrassing or whatnot. And then you go into the conversation, and then now he's got new information that he didn't have. That, okay, it was a bit last minute that he dropped it on her, and as well, he's normally quite snappy. So now he's got those two key pieces of information that he can go forward and say, okay, I need to manage my stress more, or I need to be less snappy, or I need to be more approachable, or we need to find a system where maybe if you think I'm snappy, maybe send me an email in that moment because I may be stressed or whatever the situation may be. But now you're collaborating, actually trying to solve this problem, as opposed to just like, well, you done that, it's your fault.
Yeah.
Do you see what I mean? So no, but I do think it's a cultural thing in regards to like, blame is, people always trying to assign blame because what it does, it frees everybody else off, like, the spotlight's not on me. The spotlight's, again, from a team instance, football, if one person gives the ball away, everyone can blame that player, and that leads to a goal. However, if you look at it, there's loads of reasons. Maybe it was whatever. So I definitely think that focusing blame doesn't actually
it's not helpful.
It's not helpful to any sort of thing.
So contribution. So what were the contributing factors?
Yeah,
and
exactly.
I actually want to touch on something maybe semi-controversial within this chapter. He said, imagine a couple discussing a wife cheating. She decided to cheat. On paper, she cheats, she's in the wrong. Yeah. But the husband decides to accept and move on. So now, approaching it from a contribution viewpoint, what contributing factors led to this? Did the husband neglect the wife that then made her feel that she needed to go and cheat? Does he never listen to her? Is he never around? Like, was the wife feeling sad and lonely and undesirable? What were the other contributing factors? When you're approaching it like that, now it helps you to understand. Like in the book, it says that the husband accepted and moved on, but whether he accepted or didn't accept it and they broke up or whatever, it could still help him for future relationships to potentially not get cheated on again by approaching it from, okay, what were the contributing factors? I
think they talk about, he says the tools for spotting contributions, they say. So one of them is obviously role reversal. So seeing it from the other person's point of view and, putting yourself in their shoes. So in that situation, if he's like, okay, if he puts himself in his wife's shoes and he can go through the steps of what he's done and the impacts it would have on him in her shoes to maybe to look at why she did what she did. And then also the observer's insight. So looking at it from like, just taking yourself solely out of the situation and looking at it and thinking, okay, you know what, this wife is at home all the time and you're not giving her what she needs in a relationship, X, Y, Z. Maybe you're not spotting signs where you could have done this, that, and the third. So yeah, I think these are the tools they kind of give you to kind of help solve these, to find out, to help spot these contributions,
Yeah. I think it's approaching from like a third person.
Yeah.
So you've got your viewpoint, I've got my viewpoint, but what would an external person's viewpoint be on both of the situations? So trying to approach conversations from that third person.
I'm not sure if it's this chapter or the other or another one, but they talk about the third story.
Yeah.
But again, that's similar, because again, in that scenario, he's got his story and she's got her story. And then there's the third story, which I think would come from that third person, potentially. I don't think it was this chapter, but
yeah, I think it's a bit further,
it's a similar sort of thing. But yeah, no, I mean, look, blame doesn't help anything. It kind of helps in the short term. It's like a quick fix. You know, it's like a quick fix. Like, okay, we can just blame him, blame her, blame them.
Yeah.
But really, there's a whole load of other things going on. You're not going to solve anything just pointing the blame at people.
Yeah. Look at the contributing factors from all. The next chapter was talking about have your feelings. or they will have you.
Yeah.
Again, I like this. We touched on feelings a little bit earlier, but feelings we are uncomfortable with disguise themselves as emotions. We are better able to handle bundles of contradicting feelings masquerade as a single emotion, and most important, feelings transform themselves into judgments, accusations, and attributions. So our feelings transform themselves into attacks, basically.
They leak out.
They leak out.
They leak out, yeah.
And it talks about the emotional footprint as well from our past. Think back to when you were growing up. How did your family handle emotions? Which feelings were easily discussed? And what did people pretend weren't there? What emotions do you now find easy to acknowledge and express? And which do you find more difficult? So some of us find it easy to express disappointment. Some of us find it easy to express gratitude, or difficult to express gratitude, difficult to express disappointment. Yeah, there's lots of different ways we feel based on our past experiences. And the book says, accept that these feelings are normal and natural. Like, it's okay to have feelings. And what I really like is learn that your feelings are as important as theirs. Like, we all have feelings. Everyone's feelings in the conversation is as important as theirs. And I really like that statement because, as we know, I'm super empathetic based on our last book review. And, it says, learn that your feelings are important as theirs. And, I think that for me personally, that was just a nice reminder that,
What, do you feel like you undervalue your feelings?
Undervalue is maybe not the right word, but so maybe
in a difficult conversation, do you feel as though you kind of downplay your feelings, or?
Yeah, but I feel like I would downplay my feelings. I feel like I would be more conscious of helping the other person's feelings as opposed to mine. I feel like I would, so maybe perhaps suppress my feelings at times to resolve situations to help the other person's feelings.
Do you feel they play out or they go away?
I feel it plays out, but who knows? Maybe these feelings are sitting deep down. I'm not sure. But
it's interesting, isn't it?
Like, this book allowed me to look at myself as well.
It says explore your emotional footprint.
Yeah.
So I think you have to be. I think even to have any of these conversations, you have to be quite self-aware.
Yeah.
And I know personally with me, if I'm kind of upset or disappointed or annoyed about something, I take a lot of time to kind of really think about it, because I know, again, I want to kind of take because feelings and emotions are not necessarily the same thing. So I guess I want to take the emotion out of it so then I can probably articulate how I feel. And then even if emotion does start to rise, I can actually control it and just put it, because it doesn't have any place in the conversation at that time.
Say you're in a difficult conversation or feeling something about a situation.
Yeah.
Prior to this book, would you have looked at their situation from the third eye, what we said, would you ask yourself, what information do I not have?
I'm always, maybe not, I wouldn't have worded that way, but not necessarily from an empathetic perspective, but more from, I'm just trying to think of things from how they see it.
Yeah.
And I will try and get as much information as possible, because it may impact, it's enlightening.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't have necessarily worded it, but that's why I take time, so I know exactly how I feel as well.
So the other question off the back of that then, would you say what information do they not have, like based on you?
I don't know. I don't really think about that.
Yeah.
To be honest with you,
but it does me.
The setting. I'm a lot more patient in like in a working situation than I am with it depends on the scenario, because there's different types. So it's and it's harder because with whether it's family or siblings or even your partner or your wife or your husband, whatever it is. So it's like, my brain kind of works differently in different situations. Do you see what I mean? So, but ultimately I'm always trying to find out. But again, I'm not really thinking about the other side, to be fair. So, and that didn't this just kind of made me understand or think more about, I liked when it said explore your emotional footprint.
Yeah.
And I think that's what I was saying, it'll be good for people to kind of, if they read this book or a book like that, because it would actually make these conversations actually less difficult.
Yeah.
And more people be able to be more vulnerable or more honest with people in this time. Because again, if everyone's trying to point blame, then everyone straight away gets defensive.
Yeah.
And but well, you can't put that on me because boy, and so you can't put it on me, and you can't put it on. So then it's like we're just going around here trying to see who we can point the finger at, versus let's say our contribution. Well, well, this is what I did. Maybe I shouldn't have done that, or maybe because I've done that, I didn't realize it had that impact on you, or vice versa. So
back to my question.
Yeah.
I would think, what information do I not have prior to reading this book? I'd maybe think, okay, maybe there's things that maybe I don't know. But I didn't actually think, what information do they not have? Yeah. And this book has allowed me to think, oh, they don't actually know this information. If they knew this information, then maybe that would have changed the situation. I should have gave them that information and things would have been smoother or whatever. That's the addition it helped me with, I would say, in life. I mean, there's so many, there's a lot in this book. Listen from inside out, grind your identity, ask yourself what's at stake. But we're not gonna have time to go through all it. Let's just quickly touch on, we put labels on ourselves with all or nothing.
Yeah.
And I am funny.
Yeah.
I am selfish. I am whatever. But it's important for us to let go of all or nothing information to integrate new information to our identity, because we can't be, when we create our identity as solely that thing, anything that challenges that now makes us feel, oh wow, you've challenged me. It goes with
your self-identity,
it attacks your self-identity. So the book says, become aware of your identity issues. Ask yourself, what about my identity feels at risk? Perhaps, I don't know, maybe I'm worried about my foot size. Maybe if my feet are big and I'm not aware, and then someone says, oh, you stepped on my foot, that really hurt. Okay. Now I'm attacked because are you calling my feet big? Yeah. But actually, no, I just stepped on their foot. It hurt their foot. But if I wasn't aware that I was conscious about my feet, then
like you don't know where it came from, innit?
Turned into something. Just for the record, I'm not conscious about my feet. But that was the example I decided to use.
That's funny. I think again, I like, was it chapter 11, going way further down. And I think this also leads to the point where you're talking about if you've read this book and you're in a difficult conversation and go into that patience, but it's like taking the lead, or problem solving, taking the lead. So they even said most people would have not read this book and will be stuck in unproductive methods of having difficult conversations. So when this happens, take the lead, reframe. Yeah. And reframe blame to contribution. Yeah. And then also it's always the right time to listen. So I think I employ this more with young people that I work with. Like sometimes some young people come and they'll just be talking, and it's like they're just kind of disclosing stuff or talking, and they're not even really asking me anything, or I don't necessarily even give my opinion. I just let them kind of talk, and then I might again reflect on what they're saying or whatnot. So, but I think when people are ready to listen to talk, you should always be ready to listen, because they're actually giving you an insight into what they're thinking. If I'm talking, you actually get an understanding. You might, like you said, we could look at something and it's factually, the line says this, that, and the third, but our interpretation of those three words are completely different in that setting or that scenario. Yeah. So yeah, that was I like that, because it kind of said that, because I was thinking, well, okay, this is good stuff, but if the other person isn't aware or hasn't read a book like this, or isn't aware of that, it's not just about arguing, because again, it goes back to your history, your growing up, your childhood, or experiences you've had, past relationships, past bosses, past friends, all this kind of stuff. So people are always carrying all that baggage with them. Yeah. And if you're trying to kind of have a difficult conversation, but get to a point where we can actually both get to a point where we're agreeing, or we're still friends, or we're still talking afterwards, you kind of need to take the lead. And that taking the lead could actually just be giving an opportunity to talk, and also listening, listen actively. So
yeah. All right, what is the power of these pages? Because I think there's so much power in these pages. There's so much. But I think there are key things. The contributions, how did you contribute, or what were the contributing factors to that situation? So say you're annoyed about something, maybe you feel let down by someone or whatever. What were all the contributing factors? I love that. And there's no right, don't be right. It's not about who's being right, sorry. It's not about it's not about being right. And don't play the blame game. These are all important factors in a conversation. And in a working relationship, in a marriage, with a partner, in friendships, so I would say that's, lots of power in the pages. But for me, the power for me that I personally took from this was, what information does the other person not have in a disagreement? Because I might be expecting them, they should know this, but they don't have that information. So let me tell them, or let me humble myself, because actually they don't know. So I can't be mad at them. You can't be angry at someone for what they don't know. I think for me, it's a few things, but one is that, a better understanding that feelings have a place, and I knew that, but maybe more from a work perspective or from a different perspective. But in general, I wasn't, I kind of tend to keep my feelings out of it and just kind of, but realizing that, they do actually have a place. And then also just the kind of the listening to understand and that patience and just, letting people to kind of talk. And again, one of the main messages that I think, this wasn't so enlightening to me, but it was blame is, who's right or who's wrong, doesn't even matter. It doesn't, and there's, you can be right or wrong multiple times within the same dynamic. You know what I mean? Because of contributions and all this kind of stuff. So I think not trying to point the finger of blame or trying to blame people, because it's, you replace that person. If the system's still broken, you're just going to blaming somebody else eventually. So yeah, man, I think, feelings have their place. Listen to understand, and obviously not trying to assign blame, because it's not. I look for contribution more because it's more productive. I just want to quickly touch on, our conversation earlier where you said, where you challenged my, you said one person's read the book, one person hasn't, So say that one person is, angry, and I'm continuously approaching it with curiosity. Okay, so what happened? There's only a matter of time before that person's gonna stop complaining. You can't just keep going on forever.
You know what? But sometimes you just have to realize that. I think they said something like that in the book. It's if I'm just totally, if you say it's blue and I'm saying it's red, and you say it's red and I say no, it's blue, and if sometimes, you have to realize, I think they gave a lot of different scenarios, examples at the end of the book. Sometimes people are just trying to, not everyone's trying to be productive. So once you realize that, I guess that's the enlightenment. You have to say, okay, I'm actually trying to solve this and trying to work with you and trying to understand, but you're actually just being confrontational or facetious or whatever it might be. You're trying to twist my words or whatever. It's actually not, this isn't productive. And it says, so there has to come a point where you kind of have to draw the line. Do you know what I mean? But again, patience comes in and you have to make your own call as to when, because maybe it's you know what, let's just put this one on ice for now. Because maybe that person's too emotional, too angry in that moment to talk about it. Maybe tomorrow they might feel different. Maybe the week later they might feel different. Do you know what I mean? So I'm pretty sure there was an example they gave in the book where, because it's true, not everyone's, just because you're ready to talk, doesn't mean I'm ready to talk. Do you know what I'm saying? And vice versa. So I think that's also something you have to be wary about, because there's a time and a place for that difficult conversation, so yeah.
Yeah, okay, fair. And just to quickly touch on, at the very end of the book, they talk about people coming up to them and saying, this situation, and they're trying to coach them through it, and they're like, tried that, no, that didn't work. And then they realized, actually, instead of trying to coach them through it, actually listen to them and acknowledging them was a better way to go around it, because they weren't ready to take on board what they were saying. So just listening was a better way, and the kind of they weren't ready. So anyway, difficulty rating and star rating. difficulty, my book, I'm first, difficulty rating. Do you know what? It was quite a long book. It took me quite a while to read, but I didn't actually find it difficult. I found it quite, not too difficult. So I'm going to give this a 2. It took me a while, but yeah, the chapter, I'm just leave it there, 2.
For me, difficulty wasn't difficult at all. Yeah, I'll agree with that 2. It was a bit long. But yeah, a 2, it wasn't difficult. The language was fine. The writing style, the writing style seemed quite consistent, even though it had 3 authors. The writing style did seem quite consistent, so I couldn't necessarily tell where one author began and another left off, or vice versa. So yeah. Okay.
Star rating. Hey, I need to look in the camera. I'm doing it. I'm doing it, Chris.
Go for it.
I'm doing it.
Go to.
5. I'm giving it a 5.
Yeah. Okay, why?
I loved it, man. Yeah. I just loved how it allowed me to self-reflect.
Okay.
I loved how the scenarios and the stories it gave. I loved how it broke down the difficult conversations that started off with a negativity, and how they reframed it to a productive conversation. And I think it's going to help me a lot in life. In everything, in work, in family, in relationships, in everything.
Yeah, no, I mean, for me, I felt it was too long, man. I felt like, I don't know, the beginning of the book, I really liked the beginning, and I liked the end. The middle, but going through when we was going through the chapters, I don't know, I felt like, my number, I'm giving it a 3. And I think a lot of that, because originally I kind of had in my head this morning, I had like 2.5. But when I actually go through the points, it's a good book, and people should read it because it will help them like in their life, and like you said, and it kind of brought enlightenment to me. But there was just something about it, and I don't know what it was, but I think it was the length. I feel like it was just too long. Even the last bit was like, people coming up to us. I think because it had 3 authors, I think that's kind of how I got to. I think this book's long because it's got 3 authors, and maybe they were all trying to get their point across or something. I don't know. Yeah. But it just seemed a bit too long for me. Like, I feel like it could have been shorter, but I would definitely recommend it. It's a book that I would like for people starting out, like as a business owner or entrepreneur, or people even starting out in a relationship. Like if you was like just starting out in a marriage or something like that, I'd definitely recommend it. Yeah. But yeah, I'll give it a 3.
Yeah. Okay. Fair. So next book, The Millionaire Teacher. The 9 rules of wealth you should have learned in school. If you want to join us on our book reading journey, go and buy this book. The link's in the description box, and watch this video here because you're going to find it useful. It's another good review. But this is the power of pages.
And we review books.